Hello, welcome to the weekly water outlook, November 1st, 2015. I'm John Felt. Well, I will be putting out a summary of October conditions over the next day or so, but I wanted to give you a sneak peek here. Here are October temperatures, and what you can see here is that a large part of the U.S., like this pattern we've seen for quite some time now, are experiencing above normal temperatures, fairly close over to normal over the central U.S., but as we get over the western U.S., significantly above normal, 6 to 10 degrees above normal. Now, the only area that was a bit cooler than normal was the mid-Atlantic up into the northeast U.S., and was quite a bit of precipitation and clouds in those regions. When we look at the departure from normal precipitation, generally the areas in yellow or light green were fairly close to normal. So we're looking at two areas of above normal precipitation, and these include parts of Texas and Louisiana in blue, parts of North and South Carolina in blue and purple. That purple's 12 to 16 inches above normal, blue's 8 to 12. Interesting that both of these were due to streaming tropical moisture from Joaquin and a coastal low over the southeast U.S., the Carolinas, and due to the remnants of Patricia that streamed inward along with a low-level flow over Texas and parts of Louisiana. So again, not necessarily an organized system. Both these were sort of side parameters or factors, considerations from these named tropical systems, but still they brought a lot of heavy rain. Now over the last week, if we look at the number of rain days, areas in green experienced greater days of rain, especially blue, so over parts of Wisconsin, a lot of rain days. And look at the Pacific Northwest. Last week I mentioned that that would be active, and you can see almost every day there was some precipitation over the far western Oregon and Washington state coasts. Over the middle part of the nation, fairly quiet. In some areas, for example, South Dakota, no rain at all the entire week, 0 rain days. So when we look at the last 7 days, your eyes go to areas in red, and that's 5 inches or more. So there are more localized spots. Matter of fact, taking a look at a real localized spot, look around Austin, Texas. That's over 10 inches, severe flash flooding and flood-related fatalities. Also parts of Louisiana, Mississippi, very small part of South Alabama, Northwest Florida, very heavy rain as well. But look how far inland the 2 inches of rain spread. It really sort of spread quite a bit inland, 2 inches of rain. And then if we look at the Pacific Northwest, we see heavy snow and heavy rain along the Pacific Northwest as well. Like I said, the middle part of the nation here, pretty quiet, very light amount of rainfall. Now here are your percent of normal image for the last 7 days, and you can see blue and purple above normal, red and white below normal. Now we have a number of points in flood, primarily over the Pacific Northwest, northwest part of Washington state, also parts of Texas and Louisiana, and a scattering of points that are running quite high over Florida and also parts of the southeast U.S. If you want to look at the category or degree of flooding, just want to point out that the boxes in red indicate moderate flooding, purple major flooding, and that's really where the most impacts are to property. We also have some areas in yellow, which represents high flows, and orange, which represents minor flooding across the Gulf Coast, parts of the southeast U.S. As far as drought goes, from a river perspective, areas in brown and particularly red are the very low river flows. We see a spot right smack in the middle of the U.S. and then the western U.S. Look at Texas and Louisiana, and I want to compare that to just 1 month ago, early in the month of October, and look at the difference. We've had very significant decrease in drought impacts due to river conditions over those regions. It started out with very low flows. We're ending up, in some cases, flood. So it truly was a drought to flood situation. I put a blog out on that this past week. But many areas in here started off the month of October with well below normal flows in the drought category, and we're ending it up with well above normal flows in the flood category. Now, tropical season is just about over. Some years we go very late into the season, into November, but we're right in here now. We've already sort of come down into that really low range right here, and as we get past November 10th, we're way down here. So I'm not expecting anything. It's been a very quiet season. Nothing's expected over the next 5 days, and unless something pops up that really don't see right now, I probably pretty much end my discussion of the tropical season as far as the outlooks go. Okay, now let's talk about the weather forecast here. This week, we have a jet stream pushing up to the north, a ridge of high pressure over the eastern U.S., that's that shade of brown, a dip in the west. And I know you tease me occasionally about my discussion of teleconnections, and I find it interesting. I know many of you do as well. The Arctic Oscillation, I talk about in winter often. We're starting to get into our late fall into winter. Atmosphere is more energetic, so I think it's a good time to talk about that. The Arctic Oscillation is forecast to become significantly positive this week into early next week. Now remember, when the Arctic Oscillation is positive, what that means is that we have a strong polar jet stream, and a strong polar jet stream will keep the cold air confined to the Arctic region. And when that occurs, it's more likely to have a ridge of high pressure over the eastern U.S. and above normal temperatures. And that's what we're going to have this week with that positive Arctic Oscillation, a building ridge at the aloft over the U.S. We're going to have well above normal temperatures, generally from 5 to 10 degrees, in some cases even more in the area shaded in shades of brown here. So as far as the big weather story this week, I think we have a couple. One, precipitation, but really the one covering a bigger area will be these warm temperatures. Now, as far as precipitation goes, we need to keep an eye on the southeast U.S. This is early Monday. We're going to have some very deep tropical moisture streaming inland and in some cases pushing into higher elevations, and that could bring some very heavy rain into those areas. And one measurement I like to look at to assess how much moisture is in the atmosphere is precipitable water. And you can see here we're looking at over 2 inches, and that's the dark green, pulling into parts of Alabama that will be streaming north. And then I compare that to climatology. And if you look at November here, and if you look at 2 inches, we're looking at a near or above 90%. This is the 90% line right here, and this is actually the daily high reading. So we're getting way up there, and when we get way up there, that confirms to me we have a chance of very heavy rain. Now, before I get into the rainfall amount, let's look at the jet stream a little bit further out, the 6th through the 11th of November. Basically still indicating somewhat above normal jet stream over the eastern U.S., but not nearly as much so as week 1. So I wouldn't be surprised if we get moderating temperatures closer to normal, and that's what we see for week 2. We see generally temperatures close to normal. That's either a little bit above over the central and eastern U.S., a little bit below over the western U.S., and near normal in the central U.S. Now for November 11th through the 16th, very little change here. We look at temperatures, again, very little change. I will say one thing here with these below normal temperatures in Oklahoma and Texas, sort of centered in that area, and the little tier, northern tier of the U.S. above normal temperatures, that does look like that El Nino type pattern. I know I've talked about that a lot. One of the posts I want to put out this week is compare October with an El Nino year and sort of see how it matched up. Next couple of days I'll get that out. But it is beginning to look more and more. I'm seeing more and more signs now of El Nino. And I've been not one who immediately call for these impacts from El Nino. I think they take a while to sort of build and the peak, but I do think now we're beginning to see some. Now over the next 7 days, here's your precipitation. For the most part, it looks like the southern U.S. and the southeast U.S. is going to be the area, the hot spot. 3 to 4 inches of rain over parts of Alabama, northern Georgia, and the western Carolinas, perhaps even into a large part of North Carolina. That looks like that's going to be the most active area, smaller part of Texas as well. So when we look at the anomalies, green are above normal, the shades of blue are the highest above normal. So look across the rest of the nation, pretty quiet week with the exception of this area in the south, central and southeast U.S. Now there's also chances of some heavy snow in this upper Midwest or the Intermountain region in that region as well. Now here, let's go through week 2, week 3, and week 4. The point I want to make here is it looks like really between the south central U.S. and the southeast U.S., parts of the mid-Atlantic and Ohio Valley as well, will be the area most likely to receive above normal precipitation. Now this will change from week to week and even throughout the week. That sort of looks to me like the areas that could be more active. The north central U.S., Great Lakes, and the northeast U.S. look to me to be much quieter with most likely below normal precipitation. Now here are your hazards this week. First off, we do have flash flood watches up with that heavy rain streaming into the southeast U.S. And then from days 3 to 7, heavy snow, Intermountain region, another batch of heavy rain possible, Oklahoma and Texas, and then the rain that moves from Alabama from Georgia will be moving into parts of the Carolinas. So your takeaway points: heavy rain, flash flood risk. I think that'll be one of the key impacts this week. Will be that heavy rain potential, and then for a larger area, unusually mild temperatures. So have a great week. I have a lot of content I want to get out this week. Summary of October, climatology for November. A lot of information on El Nino this week. So stay tuned. If you have any questions, there's my email. Have a great week.